Have you ever heard of a curse so powerful it could unleash the bloodiest war in human history? Today, we're journeying to the heart of ancient Samarkand, to a story that blurs the line between history, legend, and a terrifying prophecy. This is the story of Tamerlane's curse. Our story begins in modern-day Uzbekistan, in the magnificent city of Samarkand. Here, beneath a breathtaking turquoise dome, lies the Gur-e-Amir Mausoleum. It's the final resting place of one of history's most formidable conquerors, Timur, known to the West as Tamerlane. In the 14th century, Tamerlane forged an empire that stretched from India to Turkey. He was a brilliant military strategist, a patron of the arts, but also a figure of immense brutality. His campaigns left a trail of destruction, and his name inspired both awe and terror. But the legend says, even in death, Tamerlane's power was far from over. For centuries, his tomb remained sealed, protected not just by stone and guards, but by a chilling inscription. Carved into his tomb was a dire warning: "Whoever opens my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than myself." The local people of Samarkand took this warning seriously. They whispered tales of the conqueror's restless spirit, believing that to disturb his slumber would be to invite catastrophe upon the world. For over 500 years, no one dared to test that prophecy. The tomb remained a sacred and feared place. Until the 20th century. The year is 1941. The world is already gripped by the Second World War. But the Soviet Union has so far remained on the sidelines thanks to a non-aggression pact with Germany. It's against this tense backdrop that Joseph Stalin, the iron-fisted leader of the USSR, dispatches a team of archaeologists to Samarkand. Their leader is Mikhail Gerasimov, a renowned anthropologist famous for his ability to reconstruct facial features from skulls. Their mission? To exhume Tamerlane's body. The official reason was scientific study to confirm his identity, study his physical characteristics, and perhaps even create a definitive portrait of the great conqueror. Stalin, a man obsessed with history and his own place in it, was personally invested in this project. When Gerasimov and his team arrived, they were met with desperate pleas from the local community. Elders, scholars, and religious leaders all begged them to reconsider. They recounted the ancient legend, warning of the terrible curse that would befall them all if the tomb was desecrated. One story even tells of 3 local elders approaching Gerasimov with an ancient manuscript. It supposedly detailed the prophecy, repeating the warning that a great and terrible war would begin within days of the tomb being opened. Gerasimov, a man of science and a servant of the staunchly atheistic Soviet state, dismissed their concerns as mere superstition. The mission would proceed as planned. On the night of June 19, 1941, the team began their work. The air inside the mausoleum was thick with anticipation. After hours of effort, they finally lifted the heavy, intricately carved lid of the sarcophagus. Inside, they found another casket, this one made of a single, massive block of black jade. As they worked to open this final seal, strange things reportedly began to happen. The lights in the mausoleum flickered and died, plunging them into darkness until backup generators could be started. An oppressive, suffocating scent, said to be a mix of camphor, resin, and roses, filled the chamber. When the jade casket was finally opened on June 20th, they found the skeleton of the great conqueror. Tamerlane was real. But the moment of scientific triumph was short-lived. The eerie atmosphere lingered. The very next day, the expedition's cameraman, Malik Kayumov, who had been documenting the entire process, claimed he was the one who spoke to the elders and tried to warn Gerasimov. He later recounted that as soon as the tomb was opened, a sense of dread fell over everyone present. Was this just the tension of the moment, or was something more sinister at play? The team had what they came for, but they had also, perhaps, unleashed something they could never have imagined. The curse's prophecy had warned of an invader more terrible than myself. Just 2 days after the tomb was fully opened and the remains removed, on June 22, 1941, the world received its answer. Adolf Hitler, in a shocking act of betrayal, launched Operation Barbarossa. Over 3 million German soldiers stormed across the border into the Soviet Union, beginning the largest and deadliest military invasion in human history. The Eastern Front of World War II had begun. The timing was so precise, so horrifically perfect, that it was impossible to ignore. For millions across the Soviet Union, this wasn't a coincidence. It was the fulfillment of the prophecy. Stalin, in his scientific arrogance, had awakened the wrath of Tamerlane. As the war raged on, the Soviet Union suffered devastating losses. The German war machine seemed unstoppable, pushing deeper and deeper into Russian territory. Cities fell and the death toll climbed into the millions. Back on the front lines, the legend of Tamerlane's curse spread like wildfire among the demoralized Soviet soldiers. They whispered that they weren't just fighting the Germans. They were fighting a supernatural force unleashed by their own leader. The story reached Stalin himself. Whether he believed in the curse or was simply desperate to boost morale is a matter of debate. But what he did next is astonishing. In late 1942, with the Battle of Stalingrad hanging in the balance, a conflict that would decide the fate of the entire war, Stalin made a remarkable decision. He ordered that Tamerlane's remains be returned to their tomb. But this time, it wouldn't be a scientific excavation. It would be a ceremony of atonement. Gerasimov and his team were instructed to fly the remains back to Samarkand. On December 20, 1942, Tamerlane was reinterred with full Islamic burial rites. Prayers were said, and the conqueror was laid to rest with the honor he had been denied before. And then, something incredible happened. Almost immediately after Tamerlane was returned to his grave, the tide of the war began to turn. The brutal Russian winter set in, crippling the German army. The Soviet forces, against all odds, began to push back. They encircled the German Sixth Army at Stalingrad, leading to a surrender that marked the first major defeat for Hitler's forces. The victory at Stalingrad was the pivotal turning point on the Eastern Front, a moment from which the German war effort would never fully recover. So, what are we to make of this? Was it all just a mind-boggling series of coincidences? Historians will rightly point out that Operation Barbarossa was planned months in advance, and its launch date had nothing to do with a tomb in Samarkand. They'll argue that the Soviet victory at Stalingrad was the result of strategic genius, immense human sacrifice, and the brutal Russian winter, not the appeasement of a 600-year-old ghost. And they are, of course, likely correct. Science and logic provide perfectly rational explanations for everything that happened. And yet, the story endures. The timing is just too perfect, the narrative too compelling to simply dismiss. Could the collective belief of millions of people have had an impact? Did the act of returning the remains, a powerful symbolic gesture, galvanize a nation on the brink of collapse? Or just maybe, is there something to the idea that some forces, some ancient warnings, are best left undisturbed? Today, the Guriamir Mausoleum stands peacefully in Samarkand. But the legend of Tamerlane's curse serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes the most fascinating stories are the ones that lie just beyond our understanding. What do you think? Was it a curse or a colossal coincidence? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that challenge what you think you know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.